Well, hey guys, I want to welcome you to another conversation podcast, if you want to call it that. Whether you're a member of one of our churches or you're a parent who's just in the trenches trying to figure out how to parent and disciple your children, we're glad you're here. And our hope is that this conversation is helpful to you in that pursuit in some degree. Today, I am sitting down with Tim Foster, who is the senior pastor here at Highland Heights Presbyterian in Cordova, Tennessee. He's also a chaplain in the Navy Chaplain Corps and has been for how many years?
Almost 18 years,
And how long have you been in ministry?
36 years.
36 years in ministry, 18 years in the Chaplain Corps. But maybe most importantly for our conversation today, he's been a dad for 31 years. He's my dad. And so we're going to talk today about sort of the intersection of parenting and work
Mm,
life.
mm,
So most parents today, Dad, I think work full time or at least part
Right,
time. Is that true in
right.
your
Oh, yeah,
congregation?
for sure.
So I did a little research, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 93% of dads and 74% of moms work in some way
Wow.
throughout the week.
74% of moms.
Yep.
Wow.
So you're talking, I mean, that's the vast majority of people in
Right,
our churches
right.
are trying to balance this. I was thinking about my wife Shannon and I. An average day for us consists of 8 hours of work and then probably an hour or two of parenting before we go to work, 3 or 4 hours after we go to work.
hmm
So if we're awake for, say, 16 hours,
mm
14 of those hours are spent either working or parenting, right?
Right.
So this is what we do a lot. And I think a lot of folks are here.
Yeah,
And I
for
think a
sure.
lot of times
Mm,
that work and parenting come into conflict, right? There are tension points between these two things. So we want to try and help folks do both work and parenting well. As we're getting started, I thought maybe a good place to begin would be for you to talk a little about what this was like in your house growing up.
mm,
How did your parents work? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate being asked to do this, son. I think it's really important. I think it's harder to be parents these days than it
Mm,
was when my grandparents, my parents were raising us. Harder because of the time constraints,
mm,
with women working, and you almost have to work now.
mm-hmm,
It's so hard on families. Moms really almost always have to work
mm-hmm.
in some form, or at least for some hours.
What do we say? 74%.
Yeah. So, what was it like growing up for us? So, when I was growing up, my dad worked full time. He, by the time I was born, he was a teacher, and then a college professor after that. And I was thinking about this morning, not knowing what you would ask, as I was shaving, getting ready for work. And when I was older, when I got to be a teenager, he started working a second job. He was
Mm,
teaching out at the Naval Air Station, which was what Millington now is the Naval Support Center. But he taught pilots how to read and how to write, how to speak. And so he did that a lot at night. And as a kid growing up, I used to think, why isn't dad home? And I
mm,
didn't quite understand it.
mm-hmm,
And it was because we were in a time kind of like Bidenomics have been for America now. We were in a time when he needed to make some extra money
mm,
to make the ends meet.
mm-hmm,
I didn't realize it then, but it was the
mm.
Carter years. So it was really hard, for people then.
That would have been about what years?
That would have been 76, that time right in
So
there.
kind of an economic
Yeah,
crunch, and
yeah.
what you noticed as a kid
Is that dad
was
wasn't home at
dad
night.
wasn't home. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And but my mom worked full time after my brother and I were in school
Mm-hmm.
full time. She started working full time, as I'm remembering it, when my brother Colin um, was in. I think he was in nursery school, maybe like pre-kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And but then my grandmother took care of us a lot. So
Mm.
my maternal grandmother, who was just like a second mother to me, and that's why her death was so hard on me. And I remember my mom saying, "She's your second."
Mm. Had all that time together growing up. Yeah.
That she was your second mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really blessed to have parents, two sets of grandparents, very actively involved
Mm-hmm.
in raising me,
And in town,
and
and one of
yeah,
them at
one
least.
of them.
Yeah.
And then my grandparents in Mississippi were very much a part of my life. My
Mm-hmm.
pastor and his wife grandparents. It's because we went down there once a month, and
Mm.
my mom and dad were very intentional that we were down there once a month, and so
Mhm.
we spent the weekend. Um, we go. Dad got out earlier. He was a teacher, so uh, we get home from school and we go pick up
Mm.
mom at work.
Mhm.
He would have taken her to work that morning, so we went down in one car.
Yep.
Got something to eat, and went down there. Got down there on Friday night. They live near Tupelo, and those weekends are just precious
Mm.
memories to me. So that, and I got to think about this morning, son. How do you spell love? And you've heard me
Mhm.
say this for
Mhm.
so long. I don't know where I first heard it, but the way you spell love is Time.
Mhm. And so you felt it's interesting. There are two things. That one, you did feel the absence of your dad those
Yeah,
nights, but
yeah,
maybe to some degree that was counterbalanced by having grandparents
absolutely,
around.
yeah. And he had to do that.
Right.
It was what he had to do. So, but we spent lots of time together, and I got to thinking too about the time, lots of the time was my mom helping us with homework, my dad helping us with homework.
Mm.
My brother, Colin was a good athlete, so spending time with him,
Mhm.
uh, helping to coach or going to games and things like that. For me, it was helping more with papers, or I was in 4-H speech and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then for my mom, I've thought about so much lately with y'all living with us now, how much your mom is
Mhm.
helping raise your kids, raising your brother's
Mhm.
daughter too, going down there 2 days a week. But mom would get up so early and make sure that we had a hot
Yeah.
breakfast.
Yeah.
And she would start, since she was going to work, she would start something in the crock pot
Mhm.
so that there'd be supper that didn't take her too long to prepare
Yes.
when she got home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she taught Colin and me. My dad didn't clean up the kitchen at all, but it was a different generation. But she taught Colin and me to clean up the kitchen.
Mm.
And I can remember times Colin and I have laughed about this when we knew she was coming home. She'd get home about 5 o'clock, and we'd be messing around, and then we hadn't cleaned up the kitchen. So one of us was a lookout, looking out the garage door.
Better
The
get
other one's
started.
wiping up stuff, and she'd come in and laugh because the counter was wet.
Yeah, that's
She
right.
we'd just done it, but she taught us some of those really team kind of things,
Mhm.
as a family. We always went to church together, and there was no question in our house that you were going to go to church. Whatever was going on at church, that's what
Mhm.
we did. Youth group, Sunday morning, whatever it might be, and then going to church with my grandparents in Mississippi, or if I spent the weekend at my maternal grandparents, going to church with them at
Mhm.
Second Pres.
Mhm.
We went to Raleigh Pres
Mhm.
at the time, and then Highland Heights. But it's just time. It's just
Mhm.
spending time with your kids, and that's why I've tried to be so intentional with you and your brother, and with my grandkids. I want to spend time with y'all, and
Mhm.
I'm busy.
Mhm.
Have to carve it out. And you may have a bunch of questions, but can I say one more
Yeah,
thing
sure.
that I was just thinking about? So one of the ways that I tried to do that, because I've had to do secondary jobs too
Mhm.
to help keep y'all in private school, whatever
Mhm.
it might be. And so what I always tried to do, my day off is Monday, and when you were little boys, could spend the whole day with you.
Mhm.
I can remember in Greenfield, taking you rabbit hunting, and you would go all day long, walk all day long, never complain, or taking y'all to the park. And then when you started school, I was usually working some kind of secondary thing, raking leaves, whatever it might
Mhm.
be. But then picking y'all up at school, taking you to get something to eat,
Mhm.
playing with you, and so that was really important to me, and I still try to do
Mhm.
that with taking lunch to your brother on Monday,
Mhm.
meeting you for lunch sometime
And
during the
now we
week.
can call that work, right?
That's right.
We
That's right.
work in the
We're
same
work.
business,
Yeah, we
so
can talk shop, but it's time, and it
yeah.
and it's so um, just the way I was raised.
Well, I think what's so interesting, and I struggled with this when I was a new parent, is you talked about the stuff you remember from being a kid. It was not necessarily. Well, I think parents now, I fell into this trap of thinking that so called quality time with my kids was where all we're doing is playing,
Mm,
or all we're doing is, watching a movie together, whatever it is.
right.
But I think, I know my kids enjoy washing the dishes with
That's
me or
right.
mowing the grass with me,
And y'all
maybe
did all that
more,
with me.
right,
Yeah,
than these other
absolutely.
things. And so
Yeah.
parents, I would say, and I think dad would too, that when you are pressed for time, right, which most of us are,
Mhm.
don't feel guilty about going home and starting to cook dinner
Yeah.
or do the things that you have to do, but maybe try to think of ways that you can pull your kids into that with you, right?
Involve your kids in it.
Yeah, and what you've
Yeah.
already got to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this magical like just play time or
That's
whatever
right.
it is.
Like yesterday, your brother sent us a text, right? A group text.
Yeah.
He's got some lumber, so
Yep,
some
yep.
wood, and he said, we just split this wood. And then, so I said, that reminds you of childhood,
Right.
and they used to call me a child labor person.
Yes.
I did broke all these
We
child
loved it
labor
though.
laws. Yeah. And we did stuff together. So we worked in the yard, we went hunting, we went
Yeah.
fishing, um, and lots of times it wasn't just play, but we learned a lot about each other.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Well, and
yeah,
Josh is now 27,
yeah,
and he still has laughable, fond memories of splitting
yeah,
wood, right?
that's right.
Some 20 years
Yeah,
later, so that's great.
yeah,
Um,
right.
so, kind of, I guess, transitioning from your childhood to mine, you hear the stories about pastors' kids, right? It seems
Right.
like all the time there's a story about how pastors' kids hated how they grew up, and they came to
Right.
resent the church and even the faith. That's not my story,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm so grateful.
Well, I think
Yes.
I want to ask you about that because for me, I mean, I have similar memories of like, you'd have a meeting after church and I wanted to hang out, or you'd have a meeting at
Hmm.
night and I can remember wishing you were home, but never sort of
Mm,
resenting church for that.
good.
And as I thought about why, as we got ready to have this conversation, it seems to me that part of the reason was, you said you didn't necessarily understand why your dad was
Yeah,
doing what he was doing, but
sure.
from as I think back, I feel like you let us in
Yes.
to not even just the good things, but the bad things,
Sometimes the hard
the
things.
hard things. So
Yeah,
I'm curious, why did
yeah,
you decide to do that? Why did you decide to just be
yeah,
fairly transparent
yeah.
about what was going on at work?
Well, some of it I think goes back to being a, a preacher's grandson.
Mm.
So when I was growing up and we'd be down in Mississippi, my grandparents' house, and I used to think as a kid, why does Papa change clothes all the time? So on Saturday morning,
Yeah, yeah,
he got up, he'd work in the garden,
yep.
he'd maybe let us ride the horse, take us to get breakfast. And then almost always in the afternoon, he'd shower and shave and put on a suit. And back then it was a three-piece suit
Yep.
and a tie and his hat. And, I used to think, what is he doing? Well, he
Mhm.
was going to the hospital.
Mhm.
He had a funeral, he had
Mhm.
a wedding rehearsal, whatever it might be. And, but I became a part of that because I started asking questions.
Mm.
And I said, Papa, I want to ride with you. So he was in that part of his ministry, at the end of his ministry, he had a three church charge.
Mm.
So I would get to ride with him from Saltillo
Mhm.
to the early service in Boonville. We'd stop and get a Coke or something. And I can remember listening to this old, gospel music on the radio. And then I'd go with him back to Saltillo to that church,
Mhm.
where the main church. And then at night, if I got to stay at night, then we went down to Friendship Church,
Mm.
which was a little church way out on the Natchez Trace.
Mm.
So I got to see and I asked questions and I watched
Mhm.
and admired him so much,
Mhm.
So I got to see kind of some of the pattern. And then something that really struck me before I had kids, before your mom and I had y'all, um, we had a workshop in the old Memphis Presbytery. It was fantastic. It was at Rhodes College, uh, and it was about pastors' lives.
Mm.
And the committee on ministry really wanted us to go, ministerial committee in EPC. So I went, and this pastor, who was a pastor at Evergreen Pres then, I can't remember his name, but he said something that really changed my life. Is that when I was a young dad, my secretary said, "Your son just called, and he would like to make an appointment to see you." And he said, "Make
Nope.
an appointment? Well, of course he can come anytime." And she said, "Pastor, he said he can't come anytime." And he was making a point. I think he was a young teenager.
Mhm.
And he said it changed the whole direction of how he parented.
Mm.
And I thought, that is not going to be me.
Yeah, right,
I am
right.
not going to be like that. Now, y'all have had access to my office, all your
Mhm.
ministry. It's a joy to me. On my door, I've still got little things y'all wrote me, little notes. I can remember walking into the office one time because we couldn't find Josh in worship. He was sitting at my desk playing games, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "What are you doing
That's
here?"
right. That's right.
And so he got back in church with Mama, with your grandmother, but he felt comfortable coming in here,
Hmm.
and so TIME. I'm trying to be very intentional. I don't want to be that
Yeah.
pastor.
Even at and again, it's that same sort of through line as with your parents of uh, your experience with your grandfather was not that you just remember the playtime. It was the
That's right.
driving around and the going to. He was
Yes,
working,
he was working.
but he brought you into work,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And so I think parents obviously we've talked a lot about ministry because that's our work,
sure.
but I think you can see there are ways and they're going to be unique to you. I don't think we need to try to apply that for everybody, but just think
Hmm.
about how can you invite your kids into what you do instead of
Yes.
trying to maintain this really
Yeah.
hard line of work stops here and family begins here. I think you can do that, but it's really
Yeah.
hard and it's
Yeah.
not supernatural all the time.
And for so long, up until about 100 years ago, most of America was agrarian.
Hmm.
So you were working on the
That's right.
farm. Everybody was working.
You work
Everybody
together.
was pitching
Yes.
in, and that was. I think that's more the model of what God wants.
We almost might. That's an interesting thought that almost this sort of modern American separation of work and family
Mhm.
life is actually unnatural. It's really
Yeah,
never been that way
that's right.
up until recently, and
That's
maybe
right.
it shouldn't be.
I don't think so either. And like your kids, your boys, when I'm doing something, I invite them in, or they
Hmm.
know they're welcome.
Yeah, they just come.
They just come, they just join, like taking a switch plate off
Hmm.
because the chandelier wasn't working in the dining room. Well,
Right.
Knox hopped up on a
Yep.
chair. He was right there with me. I
Yep.
didn't even have to ask him. And he's looking at it. He
Hmm.
knows what a screwdriver is, all
Yep.
this kind of
Yep.
stuff. So
Yeah, I think that's good.
um, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, just don't. I think trying to make the hard division is sometimes well intentioned, but perhaps not
Yeah,
the most helpful thing to
yeah,
do. It's better just to bring your kids into what you're
yeah.
already doing.
And I can remember my dad taking us up to where my mom worked. She
Hmm.
worked at the telephone company, South Central Bell, for older people, remember. And she worked there for 33 years. And so he would take us up there sometimes. We'd bring
Yes.
her lunch,
Yep.
or we'd pick her up at work and we'd go up and meet her friends, people she
Yes.
worked with.
Yep.
I can still smell, smells trigger our memories better than
Hmm.
anything. I can still smell the cigarette smoke because most of the
Yep.
women
Yep.
smoked in her
Right.
office. Probably why she got asthma when
Hmm.
she retired. But I can remember going in there, and her taking us around
Yeah.
and us looking at her desk. We could see she had pictures of us.
Hmm.
Probably why I'm so intentional about pictures.
Yeah. Right.
I love pictures of family, and I always tell your mom, don't cover up a picture. We'll just get another
Yeah.
frame and
Right.
we'll
Right.
put up another picture. But I can remember seeing where she worked. I didn't get to go to where my dad worked very often,
Mm.
but when they would have picnics, at the school or something, we'd go to
Sure.
that.
Sure.
But I saw Dad work at home because he was always grading
Hmm.
papers,
Hmm.
so we were part of it, kind of like that.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I think that's something interesting there. I'm sure that in our both of our churches, there are people who are not just employees, but people who are owners of businesses. And it might be
Yeah.
helpful for you, somebody who's got a little bit of authority, to think about, okay, how could
Mm.
it doesn't have to be real regular, but
Hmm.
quarterly, or how could
Right.
I make it so that my employees can invite their families into the place they work,
Right.
see what they do. My brother is I mean, he does a lot of things, but one of the things he does is work on heavy equipment. And
Yeah.
I can think about how exciting it would be to go to work with him, right? For my
Yeah.
boys or for his
Sure.
daughter.
Well, and I've taken them.
Yeah,
I've
they
taken
love
your
it.
boys to lunch.
They think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Go take lunch to Uncle Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, thinking of how we can do that
Yeah.
is something that could be helpful.
And may I say one other thing?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking back when y'all were kids, that I took you on mission trips.
Hmm.
Even when you were young,
Yeah. Right.
take you down to the soup kitchen at First Pres, and I can remember Josh, just a little squirt, dropping mandarin oranges in the bags they were giving out.
Hmm.
Uh, that's important for you to see, not just to see and help other people, but to do it with your
Yes.
dad
Yes. Right.
is important.
I
Yeah.
heard someone say not long ago that until I don't know how recently, I don't know the history to the perfect date, but very often our families were named for what we did,
That's
right? You
right.
think about Smiths were
Yeah.
blacksmiths, right?
Right.
And even
Foster worked in
that's right.
foresters.
Or
Yeah.
Jesus himself, right? His occupation before his ministry starts is he just does
Yeah.
what his dad did.
That's right.
And I
That's right.
think obviously we're a little biased in this, but I think if more kids had a positive view of work from their
Hmm.
families, we might see more family business
Yeah.
kind of things, right?
Right.
So maybe the next question would be, what, as you think about the parents in your church, the parents in my church, what should we be teaching our children about work
Hmm.
from the Bible's perspective? What should we say
Hmm.
to them about work? Because I think a lot of times we complain. They hear us talk about, I had a terrible day,
Yeah.
my boss is a jerk.
Yeah.
So what should we teach
Yeah.
them?
I think it might all start with what Paul says in two different places. Whatever you
Mm,
do it for God.
mm,
So on the contracts, employee contracts here at Highland Heights, it
hmm
doesn't matter if you're working, in the nursery. It doesn't matter if you're the person who takes care of the yard, the
hmm
church yard, or cleans the church, or you're the financial secretary, the administrative secretary, whatever it might be. That's on every contract.
Do it well
Yeah,
for
and
the
do it for
Lord.
God.
Yeah.
So it's not just you and I who work for God. We
hmm
all work for
That's right.
God.
Which is
Yeah.
uh, vocation, right? Which
Hmm.
is to say that, again, we've talked a lot about ministry, but ministry is not the only work that's done for the Lord.
That's
All
right.
work should be
All
done
work.
for the Lord.
And that, all the stuff that we went through with all the COVID shutdowns and all that, saying that church was not essential, that's
Right.
insanity. Yet all work is essential because it's what we're doing to take care of our families,
Yes.
and we're doing it for God when we're
hmm
Christians. Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to know, you just said it, that actually work is part of who we are, who we're made to be as humans, that work is a pre fall
That's
reality,
right.
right? Work is not punishment because we're
That's right.
sinners. We are actually made to work
Yeah.
alongside God.
That's right.
And so, yeah, to work is essential because it's part of who we were made to be,
Hmm.
right? And so maybe, yeah, that two good places to start is one, work is a good thing; it's not punishment, and
Hmm.
two, all work is to be done with the Lord in mind. And I
Hmm.
think for most of us, if we
Yeah.
would start there with our kids, I mean, that's a wonderful sort of grounding for
That's
them
okay.
and what work looks like.
And I've been thinking this morning as I was shaving too, thinking about what you might ask, and thinking about the work that your mom does.
Hmm
When she worked full time until you were born, and then after you were born, when you were 3 months old, there was a lady in the church who was going to take care of you in Greenfield,
hmm
and she went to work for about a month and cried every day, and
Couldn't do it.
she said I can't do this, and
hmm
she's out, and I
hmm
said, baby, we'll make it work. And
Yep.
so she did not work outside the home until
hmm
both of you were in school, and then she worked part time, and
hmm
so she sacrificed in some ways
hmm
her accounting degree, but she would tell you if she was sitting here, it
hmm
was much more important to be your mom,
hmm
and to be a better wife, to be a better mom, and now grandmother.
hmm
So that's the most precious work there
hmm
is. Now it's harder for moms to do that now
That's right.
because of the economy.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so sad. I hope that we can get back to a time,
hmm
when that's more possible, when a mom can work part time, or thank God, like your wife and my other daughter-in-law, they can work from home,
Yeah, do
which is
both at the same
wonderful.
time. Yeah.
Yes, but that sacrifice, um, that work is sacrifice, no matter how you're doing it, who you're doing it for. You're doing it for God. You're doing it for your family, and it's sacrificial. That's the Christian
hmm
life. We're to imitate Jesus.
Yes, it's not
Yeah,
primarily for you,
that's right.
right? And this is for dads and moms.
Yeah,
Your career advancement and trajectory is not the main thing,
that's right.
right? It's important in so much
Yeah.
as you are glorifying God, benefiting the world, and helping your family,
Hmm.
but it can get out of whack, right?
Right.
And I think another interesting thing about what you just said is that depending on what stage of life you're in, what stage of life your family is in, work might look different. So we're
Sure.
not saying, for example, that uh, the Bible says, moms, you must stay at home, or moms,
Right.
you must work. This is a wisdom thing where we have to
Sure.
ask, okay, for my family in this particular season of life,
That's right.
what do we need to do? What's the best thing to do? And I would think too,
And nobody worked harder than farmers' wives
yeah, right.
for thousands of years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think, probably the way that you balance your time now as a grandfather and how many nights out you're out a week at work, working is different now than when we were little and you
Hmm.
had little kids at home, right?
Right.
So we're also not
Right.
saying like if you've got young kids, you don't have to behave in this particular way forever, but you need to know what
That's right.
season you're in.
That's right.
So for me, at this particular time, the generic answer, the default answer for a request at work for my time, if it's at night, is no,
Hmm.
because the place I need to be is at home. Now, are there exceptions?
Right.
Sure. But when I'm 50, 60, my kids are in college
Hmm.
or they're grown, I'll probably be out more
Hmm.
nights.
Yeah.
And so parents think about
Right.
where are you at? What stage of life are you in?
Right. Yeah, and I've been thinking about that some, JK, is with y'all living with us since August, because I am at that stage in life, and our church is doing more in the city. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to
Mm-hmm.
minister to the city more. So I am out 2 nights a week
Mm-hmm.
pretty routinely, but it feels different because there are little kids at home.
Right.
And so
Different than it did before
different than it
August,
did
right?
before, right? Because your mom and I can go out on Friday night, and but that's different too. So we're spending time
Yes.
differently. We're
Yes.
more involved in their lives, in the
Yes.
little kids' lives. So there's always some tension. There's some tug, and I think, well, I didn't get to read the kids' stories tonight,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
I got home at 6:30 instead of getting home at 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that tension's okay because it's God pulling me, saying, maybe
Yes.
maybe you need to pull back a little in this season. There are lots of folks in the church who volunteer and
Mm-hmm.
lead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of working through that now. What
Yeah.
what do I need to do differently as a grandparent? Because by the grace of God and answer to our prayers,
Mm-hmm.
all our grandkids are here
Yeah,
local.
that's right.
Yeah.
And then, to continue on this seasons theme, for a little context here, our family moved back to Memphis in August. And as our house is being built, we've been living with our
Hmm.
folks. And so in April, Lord willing, when the house is done, that's going to be a new season, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
again, all of us are going to have to rethink what
Hmm.
does my work and home balance
Yeah.
need to look like because it'll change,
Sure.
right?
Because the boys have been riding to PDO here at
You
our
come to
church, coming
preschool
with
here.
me.
Yep.
Well, I need to go pick them up and bring them here,
Right. Right. Or
Or, as I've been telling people, we'll bring the kids to see y'all
yeah, that's
sometimes.
right. That's right.
We'll let you see them sometimes. They'll stay with us.
So I've got two more questions. One is if you just think about if you're speaking to your church, the parents in your church, what if they, because most of us are so overloaded, right, with so many obligations.
Sure.
But if parents have listened to this conversation and they think, what is one thing that I could do to
Mhm.
be a more godly parent, to disciple my children better? What would you say? One thing, one single thing.
Come to church with your kids.
Mm,
Make Sunday morning a non-negotiable
in your house.
in your house.
Yep.
You don't think about it. It doesn't matter. Even when we were traveling,
Mm-hmm.
my dad had us in a Presbyterian church
Mm-hmm.
wherever we were traveling on vacation. And I think it builds the family. So, in my mind's eye, I can hear my grandparents singing. I can hear my grandparents, my cousins singing the Apostles' Creed.
Mm-hmm.
It's I can look out in my mind's eye and see you sitting with your grandmother. There's
That's
nothing.
the thing.
That's it.
And I think I said this to my congregation last Sunday, and I was saying it to myself as much as to them. I have come to realize that I can, this is coming out in early January, so we're doing New Year's resolutions. People are all this kind of thing. Um, I can tell myself if something has really become a priority if it gets on my calendar.
Mm,
If it's
that's
not
it.
on my calendar,
That's
it's
it.
not really a priority, right?
Hmm.
And so what I'm saying, parents, is
That's right.
we can think about discipling our kids. We can make this a goal as much as we want, but if we're not willing to change what 2 or 3 hours on Sunday morning looks
Hmm.
like, it's not really a priority,
That's
right?
right.
And I'm not saying that to guilt you so much as to say this is just an indicator if we know whether or not this is true. Um,
Mhm.
I would also say, as a parent of 3 young kids, I know getting to church on Sunday can be hard. I'm already there. My saintly wife has to wrestle all three.
Same thing happened with me.
Look, they're 5 minutes late sometimes. That's okay. There are Sundays they don't make it because
Mhm.
somebody's sick or something
Mhm.
happens. But the default goal in our house is that if we're late or the baby had a blowout or somebody's only got one shoe or whatever
Mhm.
it is, we may look disheveled and a mess,
Yeah.
but we're gonna be there.
Going to be in the Father's house
Yeah.
on Sunday morning.
And I
Yes.
think families too be encouraged. Like, church is supposed to be kind of a messy family gathering. It's supposed to be like Thanksgiving, and you got the crazy uncle over here and uh, the disheveled kids over here, and it's too loud, and that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Mhm.
I agree. I think that's the one thing I'd say to my
Mhm.
congregants is make
Yeah.
Sunday a priority.
Yeah, and I would say too, son, these two pastors don't care if babies are crying or kids
No,
are running up and down the aisle.
I love it.
We don't care if a teenager's asking questions. Your kid's in church with you.
Yeah,
That's the goal.
that's it.
The Christian faith is like the Jewish faith. It's a family faith.
That's right.
Yeah.
My associate pastor last week during communion, he encouraged our parents from a memory of his as a child.
Mm.
He said, "Hey, I know we like to do communion reverent and all this stuff, but if your kids are sitting next to you and you take the juice and you take the bread and they go, 'Hey, what's that?'
Mhm.
Don't wait till after church. Like, we want to
Mhm.
hear some
Mhm.
whispering from
Mhm.
family. Hey, it's not a snack.
That's right.
Here's what's going on."
That's right.
Uh, so yeah, it's
When do I get to eat it?
right.
Talk to them about it.
That's the time to
Yeah.
have that conversation,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, here's my last question. What didn't I ask you that I should have asked you, or
Hmm.
that you thought I might ask you?
I thought you might ask me about the baptismal vows. That
Yeah, talk about that. It's good.
Okay.
We'll say what they are first for
Yeah.
people who are not
Uh,
Presbyterians like
uh,
us.
when in the Presbyterian Church, we have questions they're 500 years old that parents are asked about raising their children in the faith, because we don't just baptize any children.
Yeah, that's right.
We baptize children of the covenant, children of believing parents.
Hmm.
And so, as you gave me a little heads up, this would be about being a dad. So I thought about, tried to take myself back to that time when my hair was used to be red instead of white, and in Greenfield when y'all were younger and you were baptized, how did your mom and I approach that?
Hmm.
And we approached it really seriously. It meant so much
Hmm.
to us, that we would promise to raise our kids in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Your mom was more of the admonition; she was more of the disciplinarian, right? But
Sorry, Mom, if
yeah,
you watch
yeah,
this later.
right. But and then to teach them the doctrines of the Christian
Hmm.
faith. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And my mom used to say that she started doing that with my brother and me by just teaching us about creation,
Yeah. Right.
helping us to know what
Hmm.
trees were, which trees were which, and look up at the sky, and
Yeah.
go out at night and see the stars, and fly a kite so you're looking at the clouds,
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and that we would pray with you and for you. We
Yes.
prayed for you and still do every day,
Hmm.
and but to pray with you,
Yeah, that's right.
and we didn't do the best job of family worship at night, but we did pray together. We did read the Bible to you when
Yep.
you were younger, and we tried to at Sunday lunch try to talk about what did you learn in Sunday
Hmm.
school, things like that. But the prayer part and the worship part and the nurture and admonition of the Lord, that continues,
Yeah, that's right.
and so those vows, when we took those vows,
Hmm.
we really intended to keep them, and I believe God helped us. We
Yes.
made mistakes, of course, but I feel like God helped us really try.
Yeah. And I would
You know,
say too, another thing on the vows is that uh, part of the vows when a child is baptized, or parents take the vows, but
hmm
the church also takes a
that's
vow
right.
to help you. And so,
That's
parents, I
right.
would say, and this is from personal experience too, that you can't, this is a heavy thing and you can't do it by
That's
yourself.
right.
If you are trying to raise children in the faith and you're not regularly in church, you can't do it.
That's right.
You're not meant to. And so I would say one
hmm
of the best things you could do is follow dad's advice and get in
Yeah.
church regularly. And then don't just be a chronic regular visitor who's not really plugged in,
Mhm.
like go ahead and look, that church is not going to be perfect. None of them are, partially because you're going to join them.
Mhm.
But get in there and just say,
That's right.
hey, we're going to be part of this and we need your help to raise our kids.
Amen.
It's just too hard to do it
That's
by
right.
yourself.
It's been a joy so many times. I mean, I think about all the children I baptized, over the years, and um, our music director several years ago, she made me this binder where I could record how, in a really nice way. I just had it in like a loose leaf thing,
Yeah, yeah,
the baptism I've done. So I gave her all my notes and she put it in there. And so I look back at it
yeah. That's
when
right.
I do one now, and I think about all the parents. I can see them,
Hmm.
and a lot of their children are grown now. And in Greenfield, they've got
Yeah,
children
that's
who
right.
who are in the church. So, but how important it was to them when we talked about those vows,
Hmm.
and they've worked hard to keep those vows,
Yeah,
and
it's
God's
good.
helped them.
It's good.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I hope this has been helpful to
Mhm.
you, and I would encourage you. We talked about a lot of stuff. Pick one or two things
Yeah.
and say, okay, we're going to start there and go with that. I would encourage you to pick the start
Mhm.
being in church every Sunday. That's a good place. Dad, I'm grateful for your time. I'm
You're
grateful for
welcome.
the way that you raised us.
Yeah.
And guys, you can look for more conversations like these soon. So we hope it's been helpful.
Thank you, son.
All right.